Hello ladies and gentlemen and welcome to the Film Brits podcast. I'm your host Trilby, the detective Frank Drebin of film criticism, and it has been an incredibly busy week in the world of movie news, not necessarily because of the amount of press releases or the amount of news items dropped, but because we have had a boatload of trailers, so many that I'm not even going to be able to get round to them this week. For example, we've had trailers for films like Bad Times at the El Royale or the remake of Suspiria, but I'm not going to be able to get around to absolutely everything, so I'm just going to talk about some of the more popular trailers, some of the ones that I'm personally a bit more interested in, or at least the ones that I have quite a bit to say, because, ladies and gentlemen, join me in Trailer-Palooza 2018. I'm going to be going through these trailers in no particular order. There's kind of like a chronological order, but I can't remember exactly when these trailers dropped. So we're going to begin with Bumblebee, which was the first trailer to drop in Trailer-Palooza 2018 in this incredibly hectic and busy week in movie discourse. This is a film that is directed by Travis Knight. It is a prequel to the Michael Bay Transformers franchise, which after Transformers The Last Night's rather tepid box office reception, it's kind of the end of this universe. Even though Transformers The Last Night teased a sequel and it had a whole setup for Unicron and these whole other things, that's not going to be happening anymore. It looks like Hasbro and Paramount are going to be rebooting this franchise. And what we have here is a very awkward, kind of maybe potential in-between transitional film, because what was originally going to happen was that Bumblebee in The Last Night was portrayed as a character who didn't arrive on Earth at the beginning of the Michael Bay Transformers in 2007. He appeared on Earth much earlier. He was fighting Nazis in World War II, and what we have here is a prequel that is set in the 80s when Bumblebee was still on Earth, he couldn't talk, and the adventures he got up to. And that was going to lead into the Michael Bay series, and then they continue that and maybe end it and then reboot it. But now we're definitely getting a reboot at some point in the near future, helmed by goodness knows who. It's all going to be hinging on Bumblebee's performance, how it does well critically, how it does well commercially. And if Bumblebee doesn't make $1 billion, that's fine, because this film is being made for roughly half the budget of a typical Michael Bay Transformers movie, and in a way that shows. This is clearly a much smaller scale film. The big action piece money shot, for lack of a better term, is Bumblebee catching the helicopter, which by Michael Bay Transformers standards, is quite tepid. However, it fits in the context of this trailer, and it seems like it's going to fit in the type of story they're going to tell, because I got a really great vibe from this trailer. I got the idea that this is maybe a cut down, compressed version of the first Transformers movie, a relationship between a boy and his dog, a boy and his car, or in this case a girl and her car. And we even had some of the audio from, I forget his name, I feel bad because he only passed away quite recently, the car salesman in the first Transformers movie, saying that it's a mystical bond between man and machine, getting your first car, which was a pretty nice callback, but it makes me sad because it reminds me that this is set in a universe that is basically broken beyond repair because of Michael Bay and that creative team. And the vibes I got from this was that first Transformers movie was scaled down and more intimate and, by the looks of it, better told. And The Iron Giant, which is a wonderful animated film by Brad Bird, done in the late 90s, early 2000s. Can't remember exactly the year, but it's a terrific animated movie that bombed at the box office at the time. If you get The Iron Giant on Blu-ray, they've released the signature edition on Blu-ray, which is the original film but with about 2 or 3 minutes of extra footage in it. There's a wonderful documentary about the making of The Iron Giant, and that's a wonderful documentary about what happened with the film, why it didn't perform well, how Brad Bird got into the animation industry. It's a wonderful documentary. Really recommend you check it out if you like animation or just want to get into the film business. It's a great documentary. But anyway, the Iron Giant film is a relationship between a boy and his giant 100-foot tall robot that doesn't want to be a gun. And I got that vibe with this Bumblebee trailer. This was a good trailer. I really liked it. You got the sense of awe when Haley Steinfeld, who looks really good in this film, was underneath the car and Bumblebee's face lit up and transformed above her. You got that sense of awe, and the design of Bumblebee, how he's a VW Beetle, but the way you can recognize that silhouette, you can see how the intricate parts of the car, like from the bumpers and the headlights and the rivet, how it actually comes together to form this like 10 to 15 foot tall robot. You can see the logistics in that, whereas with Michael Bay's films, it was just a hodgepodge of metal. Even when you saw Starscream in one shot as he becomes a plane, he transforms from a plane into his robot form mid-flight, you can see the logistics and the parts coming together, which you rarely saw in the Michael Bay films. These look like coherent, very like marketable, interesting designs, which if you liked this film, you can imagine going out and buying a Bumblebee transforming action figure and actually seeing, maybe being able to watch the film and say this is how the toy transforms. We've only got like one shot of John Cena and other members of the supporting cast, but this is mainly the Bumblebee and Haley Steinfeld show. She's playing Charlie Watson, she's got her first car. She's drawn to this VW Beetle, which has got a beehive underneath it, which I thought was cool. She tries to get him to speak using a Rick Astley is Never Gonna Give You Up on a cassette tape, which was I thought that was a pretty funny gag. So yeah, I've got quite high hopes for Bumblebee, especially since it's directed by Travis Knight, this is his first live action film, I believe. He was working with Leica Animation. He was a producer and animator on Paranorman and the Box Trolls, and he made his directorial debut with Kubo and the Two Strings, which was one of my favourite movies of 2016. It's a wonderful, beautiful animated movie with real heart and passion and great storytelling and wonderful, memorable characters, and I'm hoping he brings that across to Bumblebee. And as long as you've got a great storyteller and you have a strong technical team backing you up, this Transformers franchise could go really, really far. And when you have a filmmaker like Travis Knight, and you have the animators over at Paramount and Industrial Light and Magic, who have been doing, admittedly, terrific work in the Transformers franchise in terms of animation and sound design, that it's just that creative vision was being honed into something that's really not worthwhile or worthy of their talent. When you have that combination, you could have something really, really special. The only Transformers we saw here were Starscream and Bumblebee. However, we're going to be having Transformers like Barricade. We could possibly have Optimus Prime in the film. So this trailer was keeping the film's cards quite close to its chest. But I'm looking forward to it. I'm curious as to whether or not December 2018 is the best release date for this type of film. If this was released in summer with such humble aspirations, much like Solo: A Star Wars Story, it might get cannibalized by other films, maybe even by the same studio. But in December, it could work out. This doesn't quite strike me as a holiday Christmas film, but maybe a winter or fall, like later in the year, maybe that type of release date could do it good, depending on what it wants to do, depending on what its aspirations are. And it'll be interesting to see whether or not the behind the scenes changes over at Paramount and for Allspark Pictures and the Michael Bay Transformers franchise, whether or not they thought, okay, we actually really like what we're seeing here, test screenings are great, we like the film, let's do a couple of reshoots and establish this as a brand new reboot or something to change the timeline. It might be smart to this is the first live action Transformers movie without Michael Bay. This could be an interesting place to start a rebooted universe, but time will tell, it always does. So the next trailer is for the Disney animated film Ralph Breaks the Internet: Wreck-It Ralph 2. And I liked the first Wreck-It Ralph film. I thought it was a really solid animated movie. It wasn't Disney's best and brightest, wonderfulest animated movie, but there was some heart there. I really liked John C. Reilly and Sarah Silverman's relationship, and I admit, towards the end of the film, I got a little bit teared up as Ralph's about to do that, final, Wreck-It smash, that punch, and he's like, I'm bad, but that's good. And it really teared me up. There was a lot of things to like about Wreck-It Ralph 1, but for Ralph Breaks the Internet: Wreck-It Ralph 2, this trailer and the teaser trailer that preceded it a few months ago, kind of left me a little bit cold. The film looks good, the animation looks solid, I don't doubt the cast and the creative team that much, but with this trailer and the first one, what's the story here? And I'm not wanting a trailer that reveals everything. I'm not wanting a trailer that says, this is the themes of the movie, this is every plot point, this is exactly what it's about. But judging by... this is the second trailer for the film. We've had no plot other than Ralph and Vanellope go to the internet. That's all we've had. We've had vignettes, we've had sketches, we've had some jokes, we've had some cameos. In this film we even had We had Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh. We had Stormtroopers. We also, of course, had the Disney princesses who are voiced by their actual voice actresses who are still alive. So yeah, there's a lot of great cross promotional marketing, if that makes sense, even if it is only for Disney. Maybe the inclusion of Star Wars stuff might backfire so closely to Solo, a Star Wars story. But yeah, okay, so you're including all of that, but what's the plot? Why are you in the internet? What are you trying to get from the internet? And is there conflict here, or is it just going to be sketch after sketch after sketch? Oh, you've got the Star Wars world here, you've got the princesses here, you've got the bunny and the rabbit. What was it? I can't remember. One of them is being fed ice cream, one of them is being fed pancakes. Funny sketch, no doubt about that. But where's the plot here? And where's Jane Lynch as the sergeant? Where is Jake McBride as Fix-It Felix Jr.? Where is the rest of the cast here? It makes me a little bit hesitant. It makes me wonder, what are they hiding? Are they hiding some great game-changing reveals, or are they really just trying to avoid the plot because they know that this aspect might be more marketable and sellable? Which is, I think, maybe giving the franchise not enough credit. So, and one other thing that I'm a little bit concerned about is it just going to be Disney related merchandise and stuff that we're going to be seeing? Yes, we saw things like Snapchat and Twitter in terms of websites that we see on in the internet when they go and visit all of these places and have their subsequent sketches. But in the original Wreck-It Ralph movie, they had characters from Sega, they had characters from Nintendo and Konami, they had Sonic, they had Bowser, they had Zangief from Street Fighter, they had all of this cross-franchise, cross-company stuff. Whereas with this, all we're seeing is Disney. We're seeing Eeyore, we're seeing the princesses, we're seeing Star Wars, we're seeing all of this, and Dumbo is apparently going to be in the film as well. It looks like it's all Disney, and maybe all Marvel as well, which is of course owned by Disney. Apparently Iron Man and Gamora are going to appear in the film, and also the Muppets. What about the other stuff? Where is there no Mario? I know that you go into the internet, but have you been on the internet recently? Gaming stuff is massively prevalent and massively influential on the internet. So where's the gaming stuff? Wouldn't it be fun to go onto Newgrounds and maybe watch a Mario Flash animation that comes to life or something? I don't know. It just feels like they are changing focus from the franchise from, broadly speaking, video games, and more, let's just promote more of our Disney stuff in this film. That's the vibe I'm getting from this trailer. I must stress. The film could be great, it could be good, but from these trailers, I'm a little bit underwhelmed. I need to see that there's an actual story here, and that it's not just Disney using this as a tax write-off to technically promote and market their own stuff. That would be very disappointing. So, the next trailer is going to be another animated movie, but not from Disney. This is from Warner Brothers. This is The Lego Movie 2, the second part. Why it's not called the second piece, I don't know. That might have been better. Much like Wreck-It Ralph, it should have been called Wreck the Internet, not Break the Internet. And they hung a lampshade on that at the end of that trailer, but for me it just didn't hit. But anyway, The Lego Movie 2. I liked the trailer. I didn't love it, but to be fair, I didn't love the marketing for the first Lego Movie. So, and that movie wound up being, my second or third favourite film of 2014. Wonderful, amazing animated movie that people were arguing should have not only been nominated, but should have won Best Animated Feature at the Oscars, which of course it was not nominated. Lego Batman also was not nominated, but The Boss Baby was, so it's clear the Academy seems to have some weird Lego prejudice. Maybe, I don't know, the head of the Academy stood on a Lego piece recently that just really, really wanted to hold it against the company. So the trailer, it picks off a few years after the events of Taco Tuesday, which is where the first Lego movie ended, when the sister character of the boy who's playing with the Legos gets involved with the Duplo and destroys everything. And now it's a post-apocalyptic Mad Max-style wasteland, and it's really fun seeing Emmett be just a happy-go-lucky, normal, oblivious to everything bad. Because I kind of liked how Wildstyle, played by Elizabeth Banks, is saying you can't just keep acting happy when everything is really, really shitty. Not an exact quote. And a lot of people, I think, are relating to that. This is the first movie came out 4 years ago, 2014. Well, this is going to come out in 2019, in February 2019. And back in 2014, there was no Trump, there was no Brexit, there was no massive amounts of division. So Emmett is just here, like, in 2019 going, happy-go-lucky, everything's fine, everything's great. And Elizabeth Banks is like, no, everything is not awesome. What is wrong with you? You can't just keep on acting like everything is still awesome. It really isn't. That was something I personally related to. Whether or not that was an actual intended subtext of this trailer and the Lego Movie 2 remains to be seen, but I found it was pretty funny. So we're going into space with the Lego Movie 2. What happens is that a Duplo invader, like some spaceship, comes along and kidnaps most of the supporting cast, and it's up to Emmett to go into space and rescue them. And by the looks of it, we're going to be continuing the trend of the sister just ruining the game for the young boy who's playing with the Lego pieces, because one of the last jokes is, welcome to the Sistar system, and the sister system. And it seems like they're going to be running with that metaphor. I would like to see more of the real world, which was just a wonderful bait and switch that the first movie pulled, and you can take that into so many interesting directions. It's stuff that was kind of hinted at, like it had little to no presence in the Lego Batman movie, but they actually had live action segments in the Lego Ninjago movie, which also had like live action appearances from Jackie Chan. And if you want to watch the post-credit scene for the Lego Ninjago movie where Jackie Chan does a stunt where he has to catch like 20 plates and not drop a single one, and how many takes it took for him to do it, but he does do it, that's massively impressive. So yeah, the main focus of the trailer was Emmett and Wildstyle and these new invaders. You got you only briefly saw Will Arnett's Lego Batman, but the whole cast is returning by the looks of it. So you're gonna be having Alison Brie, Charlie Day, Nick Offerman, and everybody else returning, but they have very little presence in this trailer. So this is a debut trailer for a film that's coming out in like 7 or 8 months' time, so there's going to be more to show, but this was a solid first impression, and I'm optimistic and really hopeful for the movie, because the trailers for the first one didn't blow me away either. I liked them, but I didn't love them, and I liked this trailer but didn't love it, so it's got the benefit of the doubt for me. And one trailer that I think really should have impressed me a lot more than it did was the trailer for Mortal Engines. This is a film coming from it's from Peter Jackson. He's a producer of the film. What he does is that he works with all of these animators with Universal and at Weta Digital, and he picks somebody to be his protege. He had Neil Blomkamp for District 9, and for this one you've got Christian Rivers, who worked as an animator on Lord of the Rings and on King Kong, and worked as a splinter director for the Hobbit trilogy, which is somebody who essentially goes off with like maybe 1 or 2 actors to shoot a couple of shots or a scene or some cutaways and things like that. So it's somebody that, it's not a huge amount of responsibility relatively speaking, but it's you need to have a lot of trust in that person to do a good job, much like Andy Serkis was a second unit director for the Hobbit trilogy and filmed a lot of the Legolas stuff. So it's somebody that the director has to trust. So Christian Rivers clearly has a lot of trust with Peter Jackson, and this is, by the looks of it, his feature-length film directorial debut. He's done a few shorts, but this is going to be his feature film debut, and it looks massively ambitious. He's also going to be directing the Dam Busters movie, which Peter Jackson is also producing, so hopefully this works out for him. So the premise of the film, if you've not seen the trailer, is that it's the future and life sucks, and all of the cities on the world, it's like a Mad Max style desert, but all of the cities in the world are on these massive vehicles. They're on tracks, they are travelling across the world, and London is this massive gigantic city on wheels that is eating other cities and towns and basically building its own empire. It's a pretty cool premise, massive influences on steampunk, clearly, but the first teaser trailer looked pretty cool. This one gives us more of the plot. It shows like a fugitive who's trying to kill Hugo Weaving's character, and she fails to assassinate him, and she gets this guy who joins along on the journey. With the exception of like Hugo Weaving in this trailer, most of the cast are relatively unknown. We've also got Ji Hae, who is like a leader of a resistance who does some pretty cool fight scenes in this trailer. She is, from what I hear, I've no idea of any of her actual stuff, but she's a South Korean singer-songwriter and actress, so this seems to be her Western like mainstream debut by the looks of it. And this trailer was okay. and I'm anticipating the film. But this trailer, I feel like for a premise like this, it needed a big wow moment. It needed a blow me away ending. It needed an amazing money shot ending, which made me think, okay, this is something I've got to see on the big screen. And the story seems to have scale and scope to it, but I want to see that on screen. I want to see the amazing visuals that I associate with a Peter Jackson Weta Digital production. I want to see a massive vehicle chase of these cities. I want to see the scope of this thing, and with this trailer, I was just not getting it. The story itself seems a bit ho-hum, like typical young adult. I appreciate that the formula has been changed, where you've got Hera Hilmer, who plays the assassin who's trying to kill Hugo Weaving's character. She's doing all this because the Hugo Weaving's character killed her mother, as opposed to it being, you killed my father, and my father left a briefcase of everything that will advance the plot, like Amazing Spider-Man style. And yeah, the whole daddy's complex that has been a massive trope in fiction for particularly the past decade. It's always kind of been prevalent, but it's really a crux that filmmakers and creatives have been relying on way too much, to the point of redundancy and mockability. Although I doubt the nuts and bolts of the plot will actually change, but it's like, oh, it's not the father, it's the mother this time. So there's only so many times they can use that trope like that, and hopefully this is going to be one of the last times you see it. So yeah, I want to see more. It looks pretty cool. I'm probably still going to be anticipating it and checking it out. I just wanted more from this trailer. The next trailer is a debut trailer for A Star Is Born, which is a remake of a film from the 1930s, which starred, get the names in front of me, William A. Well... Oh no, what am I on? I think it was one of the writers. I'm terrible at reading. Starring Janet Gaynor and Frederick March. I've not seen the original film, but this was a pretty good-looking trailer, and this is a Bradley Cooper movie. He is directing, producing, he is co-writing and starring in it, so this is absolutely his passion project, a vehicle he's wanting to do, and he's teaming up with Lady Gaga. So the plot is that Bradley Cooper is a country western singer who's really popular and really successful, and falls in love with a woman named Ali, played by Lady Gaga, who writes her own music but does not perform it, because she says in the trailer that everybody loves how my music sounds but not the way I look. Even Lady Gaga is beautiful. Fuck off, whoever you are in the movie. Fuck off. So yeah, and that's the plot of the movie, where Bradley Cooper's country western character is going to try and raise her profile and get her singing in front of crowds. Apparently, I've not seen the original, and I've not seen the musical, which it was adapted in the 50s, starring Judy Garland and James Mason, or the rock version, which starred Barbra Streisand and Chris Christopherson. I've not seen any of this. I don't know the story, but I'm hearing that apparently Lady Gaga's character in the movie starts eclipsing Bradley Cooper's character, and that puts tension on the relationship. You don't get any of that in this trailer. This is all the premise, the setup, and the relationship and the romance between these two. And the two seem to share chemistry. Bradley Cooper is going full method, and he's singing and he's doing all of the country western songs, playing the guitar. That's pretty cool. This is a cool trailer. I want to see more though, and it's clearly trying to aim for an Oscar style push when it comes out come October, November time. So we'll see how it goes. I like the look of the movie. Bradley Cooper as a director is interesting and intriguing to me. I don't think he's directed anything else, but this is his proper coming out party by the looks of it. So we'll see how it goes, and I'm anticipating it. I want to see Lady Gaga do more, because what I've seen her in acting wise has impressed me so far. This could be a potential Oscar nomination, and if she wins, then that would be record breaking, I think, because of the amount of awards she's won in so many other industries, in TV, in music. That would be great for her. And it's also going to be competing with another Oscar-type movie, which we also got a trailer for this week, First Man, directed by Damien Chazelle and based off of the book First Man, The Life of Neil A. Armstrong, written by James R. Hansen. It's the true story of Neil Armstrong, played here by Ryan Gosling, and the mission to the moon, the Apollo 11 mission in 1969, with Steven Spielberg as an executive producer. The film's coming out in October 2018. This trailer underwhelmed me. I think out of everything that I'm talking about in the podcast, this was one of the weaker trailers. And I don't think the film will be bad. I think it will be really good. You've got a great cast. You've got Ryan Gosling as Neil Armstrong, Claire Foy as his wife, Corey Stoll, Kyle Chandler, Jason Clarke. Terrific cast. I love Damien Chazelle's previous work. I love Whiplash with every part of my cholesterol-ridden heart. I love La La Land as well. I'm an ardent defender of La La Land. And there's nothing in terms of the creative team that makes me worried. This is just a movie that I think, does it need to be made? What will set this apart from so many other spacefaring movies like Apollo 13, like Gravity? Like what about this story, apart from the fact that it's a true story, is what warrants a big screen adaptation with this type of creative team? And this trailer didn't really show me why. It was just like, this is how Neil Armstrong landed on the moon, and this is what NASA did, and this is it, and he took the first step, and blah blah blah. What is there to the story? I'm not going to claim to be an expert in the Apollo 11 mission. I don't know the nuts and bolts. I don't you even had Hidden Figures a few years ago, which was a really interesting take on like NASA spacefaring movies, when it's about the mathematicians who were never talked about. It's the actual literal hidden figures. But for First Man, it's like, okay, this is a true story. I could read a book. I could look at a Wikipedia article. What about this movie is going to make this really worthwhile storytelling? And with Damien Chazelle, I have no doubt the camera work is going to be terrific, that the cinematography is going to be stunning, but that's not on display in this trailer. Like, Ryan Gosling, I know is a great actor. I'm not seeing much of a performance here. Same for Claire Foy. What is to this film? It's not a bad trailer. It's just, what is this film? What's the point of it? Apart from, let's try and get Damien Chazelle, let's see if he can actually win Best Picture this year. Let's see if Ryan Gosling can win Best Actor this year. But this trailer has given me nothing to work with. Nothing to work with, and that's really disappointing. I'm hoping to see more. I'll give it a chance. I'll give it the benefit of the doubt, but this trailer really underwhelmed me. And going from one Claire Foy project to the next, we have The Girl in the Spider's Web. And I know that Claire Foy is playing Lisbeth Salander, but the real star of this movie, according to this trailer, is director Fede Alvarez, who directed Don't Breathe and the Evil Dead remake. This guy knows his horror, he knows his way around a camera, he's a terrific storyteller. And the first scene, that I kind of miss trailers that just show, instead of showing the entire movie, they just show one scene, like a condensed scene. It was something that Don't Breathe did as well, where they show essentially the break-in and how everything goes wrong, and that was more or less the selling point of one of the trailers. But they had clips of everything else, but that was the main focus of the trailer. And this trailer for The Girl in the Spider's Web did something similar, where you've got Claire Foy as Lisbeth, who is holding this guy hostage, and for all of the crimes he's done, and how he's been acquitted, or how he's been released from prison early or something. And she's trying to bring justice to the women who he's done wrong by transferring all of his assets into their bank accounts. So, and that trailer, this trailer just shows a condensed version of what I imagine will be one of the very first scenes of the movie. Terrific introduction, great shots, amazing camera work. You can tell that this guy's got a horror background, even if you don't know the work of Fede Alvarez, and that's what makes him such an ideal person for this adaptation. As for the rest of the story, I have not read the book. I have only watched I've watched the first two Swedish movies, the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo and The Girl Who Played with Fire. I've not watched The Girl Who Kicked the Hornet's Nest, and I've also watched the David Fincher one, which this is completely separate from. It's kind of dubious source material, because this is the fourth book in the Millennium Trilogy, which was originally created by writer Steg Larsson, but he passed away, and this book was written by David Lagerkrantz, who did The Girl in the Spider's Web. So this is something that's very separate from everything else that's been done with the adaptation before, apart from the characters. You're going to be having Sivia Gudnadsson as Mikhail, and Claire Foy is putting on a Swedish accent for Lisbeth. So I have no doubt she's going to give a terrific performance, and Claire Foy is outstanding in almost everything she does. But yeah, Fede Alvarez, this is his movie by the looks of this trailer. I loved the look of it, and even though I don't quite know what the plot is or what the story is going to be or how it would tie into the second or third books in the franchise, or if this could be an effective standalone story, I was gripped by that first scene. I think that Fede Alvarez is going to do a terrific job with the source material, and that Claire Foy is going to be an amazing leading lady. That would be great. Speaking of great, we have, I think, what has been the biggest trailer of the past week. It has been viewed like nearly 50 million times in the past week alone. It is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. It's directed by a trio of directors. You've got Bob Persichetti, Peter Ramsey, and Rodney Rothman. And it's got a screenplay by Phil Lord. And it is made in part by Phil Lord and Chris Miller of 2122 Jump Street and the Lego Movie. And Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, oh boy, this was a great trailer. I watched this trailer about a day before it actually dropped on YouTube. I watched this trailer when I went to a screening of Jurassic World, and this trailer just arrived unannounced in front of it. And I was like, I've not seen this trailer, and I'm seeing it on the big screen before, like, a day or like a few hours before it's even on YouTube. That was bloody awesome. So I really appreciated that. But this trailer, man, wow. And the animation and the action and the web slinging and the skyline and the style is outstanding. I loved the music as well as the trailer was building when you saw Spider-Man fighting what seemed to be an Ultimates inspired version of the Green Goblin and Kingpin and all of these other villains, and Miles Morales Spider-Man was hopping over the taxis, and there was just the odd frame where everything would go yellow except Spider-Man. It looked like comic panels come to life. It was a real great striking aesthetic. And this type of animation, I imagine, is much cheaper to do than, say, Pixar DreamWorks full 3D style. The frame rate seems slightly lower. You were able to go more abstract with the images. If whatever is out of focus in the image gets what looks to be like a weird after effect, like if you were to watch it through 3D glasses, it looks wonderful, and on the big screen as well, because I saw this before Jurassic World on a big screen, because that Jurassic World deserves a big screen. It looked outstanding. It looked beautiful. But the story it's telling as well. You've got Jake Johnson as a older Peter Parker who is just really... He's just not with it anymore. He's like, oh, this burger's amazing. And then the waiter drops the receipt down. He's like, you got money on you, right? You got money on you? Which I thought was really funny. You got Haley Steinfeld as Spider-Gwen. But what I loved most was the relationship between Miles and his dad, voiced by Brian Tyree Henry. And he's in the back of the police car being taken to school, and his friends are like, oh, you've been arrested? He's like, no, Dad, can you just run the red light? And he's like, nope, other officers may do that, but not your dad. I loved that. It was great, and the ending joke when he's being dropped off at school and he won't let him go out inside the school until he says, I love you, Dad. That was lovely, that was charming, but there's also stuff like sprinkled into the rest of the trailer where he says, I see the spark in you, it's amazing. And how there's even a scene when it looks like he's going to be confronting him in an alleyway, and he's telling him to put his hands up. He's got a gun pointed at him, but he doesn't know it's his son. I'm loving this dynamic, and I think that's where the heart and soul of the movie is going to be, the relationship between Miles and his dad. Because the relationship between Miles and his family in the comic books is really complex and interesting, because you have, I think it's his uncle, who in this movie is played by Mahershala Ali, but it may not go through the same approach that the comic book does, understandably so. His uncle's a thief, he's a petty criminal, and the rest of his family is like, no, you don't have to be like that. You've been accepted into a charter school through a lottery, which is, holy shit, America, your country's depressing, your educational systems, it makes me physically upset. But yeah, so Miles is accepted into a charter school, and his dad and his family are like, no, you don't need to be like your uncle, you've got a charter school, you've got a chance to get out of here, you've got a chance to make something of yourself. But he also feels this responsibility to save people and be Spider-Man. Miles Morales is a wonderful, compelling character, and I'm so glad he's made his way into the mainstream Marvel Comics run, how he's in the mainstream Marvel universe. I think that's wonderful, because he's great in the Ultimate universe, but he really shines in the actual proper Marvel universe, and I'm sure he'll shine in this movie. And part of me is thinking, oh, it's an animated Sony movie, this is clearly a second-tier project, but this trailer, which, like, full disclosure, I think is the best trailer of the week. All the trailers I'm talking about this week in this podcast, this is the one that stood out to me the most. I think this is the best trailer. but the way it's being approached, and the heart and the storytelling and the humanity and the animation as well, because when he jumps off the building and he breaks some of the glass on the window and he's upside down, he is upright but the cityscape is upside down. It looks beautiful. This looks amazing. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is one of my most anticipated movies of this year so far. This is coming out in December 14th, 2018. I'll have to double check the English release date. I'll double check it now while I'm on the podcast, because that makes for terrific radio, understandably speaking. So it comes out in America in December, so it's going almost head to head with Bumblebee. And yeah, in the UK, December 14th, so I'm not going to have to wait till next year, which is awesome. So yeah, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, I loved almost everything about this trailer. I hope Spider-Ham is in it, if they're going to be having Spider-Man, Ultimate Spider-Man, Gwen, Spider-Gwen, if they're going to be having all these ones, I hope we also get a nod to Spider-Ham. That would be a hell of a lot of fun. But yeah, this looks amazing. This looks better than Spider-Man Homecoming, but that's not really that high of a bar, relatively speaking. So the next trailer is How to Train Your Dragon: The Hidden World. We're going for another animated movie. And my history with this franchise is that when I saw the first How to Train Your Dragon in 2010, it was a wonderful, beautiful, amazing animated movie. It's one of DreamWorks' best films. And when I saw it, it came out like in the first quarter or like the beginning of the summer in 2010, and I said Toy Story 3 has got to run for its money. But then Toy Story 3 came out and was just amazing in every way. But How to Train Your Dragon is still a beautiful, amazing film. The sequel is just as good. The 2014 sequel is amazing, but it opened during the summer. It opened in competition with 22 Jump Street, and it didn't make as much in its opening weekend as 22 Jump Street. That is a pretty big deal, because it's a 4-quadrant animated family movie. Those almost always make money, and it went up against an R-rated comedy, and it couldn't compete. So this third film, I'm so glad it is getting a third film, and that DreamWorks and Universal didn't pull the plug on this franchise, that they're giving it one final chance to conclude the story. It's getting a March release date, which I think is a lot smarter for it. And this trailer, the elephant in the room is the music. The Ed Sheeran song Castle on the Hill. I love that song. I think it's one of Ed Sheeran's best songs, if not his best song, completely. I love Castle on the Hill. It's amazing. It doesn't belong in this trailer. It doesn't belong in many trailers. Not only does it give me flashbacks to Ferdinand, which I talked about in the last episode of the podcast. It was I watched it on a flight and I gave it a brief review, because Castle on the Hill played during those trailers as well. Not only does it give me flashbacks to Ferdinand, but it doesn't fit. When I think of epic dragon battles and this relationship between Hiccup and Toothless, I don't think, driving at 90 down these country lanes. I don't think that. Go away, stop it. So this trailer, apart from that, if you look at it in terms of just how it's structured, the animation and the theming that's going on, just remove the music from it, it's a great trailer. It's really good. And even though this comes out next March, I think in terms of everything I'm talking about this week, this is the furthest film away. Lego Movie comes out like February, March time, so it's either the Lego Movie or this, but it's still a ways away. But we saw a lot here. We saw a look at the villain played by F. Murray Abraham, who's got a really cool voice. I'm looking forward to what he does, and he seems like an ideal villain to end this trilogy, because he's saying he's the one who's been killing all the Night Furies except for Toothless. So having Toothless and Hiccup come face to face with the what's it called? The root of all your pain, Mr. Bond. No, the author of all your pain, Mr. Bond. Having them come face to face with that, it's an ideal final antagonist for the franchise. But this trailer focused on the friendship of a lifetime. And it's a beautiful poster when the poster that dropped with this trailer, it's a bearded Hiccup riding Toothless above the water, and his hand is skimming across the water. And the reflection is the version of him from the first movie, this young boy who found this dragon, and now he's grown up into a man. And this trilogy has done a great job at portraying that growing, that ever-growing relationship. And it also has a great link to some of the continuity. There's a great shot when Hiccup is next to the White Fury, who is essentially the female counterpart to the Night Fury, and Toothless is going to have a girlfriend. And Hiccup can't ride the White Fury conventionally. He's clung to her side, and the reason for that is because he's got the amputated foot. He has a prosthetic limb, which changes the way he has to ride dragons. And it's because some of the great theming and storytelling that's been throughout this trilogy, where Hiccup and Toothless they are similarly disabled. Toothless has got an issue with his back fin, right? When he crash landed in the first film, when he got shot down by Hiccup, he lost part of his back fin, and Hiccup engineered a sail, or like a prosthetic fin on the back of Toothless, and it's one that he can control when riding on top of him. So these two are made for each other in a sense. They're ideal. They are mirror opposites of each other, despite species changes. And it's been a wonderful relationship to see unfold over the course of these films. And it's also just forbid the sentimentality. It's also just wonderful to see disabled representation in a film, to see someone who doesn't have a leg but is still able to be the hero of the story. That means a lot to kids who are able to relate to that character, and how it's an actual part of the story and the character, and it influences his day to day and how he has this relationship with Toothless. It's really wonderful, and just to see him, he's unable to ride the White Fury properly. This is a creative team who really pays attention to the details, and the animation looks beautiful. The best shot of the trailer is when Hiccup throws the sword at the barrels and causes them to ignite, and him and Toothless walk out of the flames. It's beautiful. These films have been so wonderfully animated, and I was worried with the tepid box office reception to How to Train Your Dragon 2 that they would slice the budget for this one. The budget for the first film was 165 million. It made 500 million, or 495. The budget for How to Train Dragon 2 was slightly lowered. It was 145. Oh no, it made more money than I thought. It made 621. It must have done really well internationally, because domestically it was a disappointment. So yeah, internationally it did really well. And this one, we don't quite have the exact budget for it, but I was wondering that because of its initial domestic opening weekend and its poor performance there, that they would slice the budgets. But no, this still has a massive scope to it. My one concern is that the hidden world in the title just seems like a copy of the hidden world that we saw in How to Train Dragon 2. It's just the same trope. It's, there's a hidden world of dragons in the second film, and in the third one, it's another hidden world of dragons. There's only so many times you can do that. And there's also the TV series, which I forget what it's called. It's like a series on Netflix or Amazon. Did they have hidden worlds? Probably, I don't know. But this film still looks great. The music aside, the animation's wonderful. The storytelling just looks as great as ever. And just seeing this relationship grow and potentially come to an end in this franchise, I'm seeing this opening day. I'm seeing this opening weekend. This looks beautiful. And the final film I'm going to be talking about, it was the last big trailer to drop this week. It was Halloween, directed by David Gordon Green. And this is a interesting creative team. This is essentially the team behind the stoner comedies Pineapple Express, Your Highness, and The Sitter. It's also written by Danny McBride, of all people. But it's coming from Blumhouse, so obviously it's got quite a low budget. But this trailer looked really cool. It was filled with some striking imagery, like the prison courtyard with the checkered pattern. The shot of Michael Myers looking at Laurie Strode through the window, but when she shoots, it's shown that he was looking at her through a mirror, so he wasn't really there. The final shot when he's in the cupboard, that looked really cool. The only concern I have is the characterization of Laurie Strode. And I'm not just talking about the hair, because when the very first promotional image, Jamie Lee Curtis had a pixie cut, and it looked really, really cool. But now her hair is shoulder length and frizzy. Babe, Jamie Lee Curtis, you rock that pixie cut. That looked really cool. Anyway, it's also more tactical, because there's less hair for him to grab if he comes after you. But I digress. The only issue I have with the trailer is that characterization, that despite it being 40 years, she's still training and practicing, getting ready to kill him. Now, I understand that after the events of the first Halloween, which would have been really, really traumatic, she may keep a gun under her bed or keep a gun on her person at all times for self-defense. However, after 40 years, still getting mannequins and shooting them with a rifle and a shotgun in the forest or in your backyard, No, it doesn't ring true. Like, Laurie Strode, yes, in the first film was a fighter, and she was willing to escape and take on Michael if necessary. But someone who would dedicate 40 friggin' years to that, like, and still after 40 years, like, try and be like, oh, I want him to escape so I can kill him myself. Maybe if this was like Halloween H2O continuity, but no, it was some random guy who scared the shit out of you 40 years ago. It doesn't ring true. It only feels like he's a big deal in this universe and in Laurie Strode's mind because he's a big deal to the audience. In the trailer, the film could justify it wonderfully. In the trailer, it does not ring true. However, I loved the shots. I liked all the shots of Michael with the mask. That looked really cool. The bit with the teeth was creepy and cringe-inducing. There's a lot to like about this trailer. I just think that Jamie Lee Curtis is being underserved by the material that's being presented. But by the looks of it, this could be very different. But yeah, it looks cool. It may have spoiled quite a bit in terms of how Michael escapes, what he does to get the mask back, that he comes back to the town to get Laurie Strode, how that they even have a face-to-face proper confrontation, and he tries to stab her, or vice versa. One of them tries to stab the other and they catch the arm. This spoiled a lot, but this comes out in a few months' time, October 19th, 2018. Ideal Halloween movie, like Halloween release date. So yeah, this looks good. Although considering how basic the premise is, that just some guy wants to kill a bunch of people, someone on Facebook pointed out that despite the simple premise, this franchise now has 3 alternative timelines. That's insane, and 4 if you count the Rob Zombie one. So a small premise has gone a long way. But just hearing the music, the John Carpenter theme, he's returning to do the music for this one. He's executive producing. It's cool. It felt right. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with the material. I am looking forward to Halloween. So, like I said, my favourite trailer out of all of these was Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, and my least favourite was First Man. And I did not expect either of those results at the beginning of the week. So yeah, a good, great trailer can really change everything. And that, ladies and gentlemen, ends Trailer-Palooza 2018. When there's another busy week later on in the year, we may do another one of these, so Trailer-Palooza continued. But let's get to some patron questions. I didn't have time to get to them last time because of how long and how stacked that podcast was and how much I had to talk about, so I'll just do these. We won't do a lightning round questions session, so we'll just talk about the questions that patrons have sent me. And if you'd like to support the podcast financially, if you would like to get an early download of the podcast, then be sure to visit www.patreon.com/Trilby, TRILBEE. And you can help to support the podcast financially. You can help to support all of my reviews financially. You'll get your name in the credits of any video content that I do. And you will also get your name in the credits of my upcoming short film, Before He Wakes, a horror drama movie about a couple who have recently moved in with each other for the first time. They've been with each other for a while, and now they've moved in for the first time, and the woman discovers that the man is a walker and talker in his sleep, and over the course of a couple of nights he starts to become increasingly violent and unpredictable, and that's the premise of the short film. If you'd like to get behind the scenes vlogs and updates as we do the last couple of days of filming, I think it was going to be 1 more day of shooting. I think it's going to have to be 2 more days of shooting, as there have been some rewrites to the script. As the bigger picture of the movie has come together, there have been some rewrites. I've heard some of the music being composed for it recently. It sounds bloody amazing. So if you'd like to contribute towards that short film, help to get it finished and funded, and get your name in the credits of it, then please consider becoming a patron. All you have to do is just donate $1 just for 1 month. Your name is in the credits, and you can continue being a patron if you want for the foreseeable future, but you only need to ever do it once, and you'll have your name in the credits. So, the first question comes from regular patron Edward Sweet, who says, bad films that were saved from being irredeemable by virtue of 1 or 2 really good decisions or moments. An example I often use is casting Jackie Earle Haley as Freddy Krueger in the Nightmare on Elm Street remake. Not as good as Robert Englund, but he was still a commanding presence. I'm with you there. I have some issues with Freddy Krueger's characterization in the Nightmare on Elm Street remake, and there's a lot of issues with that film in general. But casting Jackie Earle Haley, good move, good decision. I think he gets a little bit too shouty occasionally, but that's the direction. I'm not going to blame Jackie for that. That if you look at that screenplay and if you see dialogue like "You can't save her," if you see that dialogue written on the page, that's how you're going to say it. That's how the director's probably going to interpret it as well. I can't blame Jackie Earle Haley. So that's a really good example, and that's one I really do agree with. Mm. As for good decisions or As for good decisions or moments in other films, these aren't films that I necessarily dislike, but they're films that, by general critical consensus aren't considered very good. So I'll go for the first Cars movie, which is not been very well received, but I like it. But I think the moments that almost everyone can defend, or the character that almost everyone can defend, is Doc Hudson, who's voiced by Paul Newman, the late great Paul Newman, who's this retired racer who has taken refuge and has retired in the humble town of Radiator Springs, and no one else in this town knows who he is. But then Lightning, this hotshot racer, comes along and is like, "Oh, it's you! You're the fabulous Hudson Hornet." That whole subplot, that story arc is wonderful. It's top tier Pixar in my opinion. And when you had Cars 2, when Paul Newman had passed away and they've got a shrine to him, they've got a museum to him in Radiator Springs, you really feel the loss. You feel his presence is gone. And one of the best things about Cars 3 is that a lot of that is about the legacy of Doc Hudson, that they carry on his teachings, they meet some people who knew him throughout his life, and that was a really nice touch and a great way to cap off the trilogy. But in the first Cars movie, there's the brilliant scene. It's mostly silent, in terms of there's no dialogue, there's music and sound effects and everything, but the scene when Doc goes round the racetrack in Radiator Springs for the first time. He takes out the racing tires, puts them on, and then he decides to just go for it. And that whole sequence, it's animated beautifully. The music is great, and he actually manages to take the turn on dirt that Lightning, who is basically a pro racer, was unable to do, and he shows him how it's done. He shows that it's not impossible to accomplish, and how he kind of comes out of retirement to coach him. And it's not a typical Mickey "oh, you gotta eat lightning, you gotta crap thunder," or Pete. Is it Pete? It's that Mickey parody in the Disney Hercules movie. And you have it's Phil. Yeah, Phil. That's his name in Disney's Hercules. It's not that. It's a much more compassionate mentor type relationship, which I really liked. So yeah, Doc Hudson in the first Cars movie, great casting from Paul Newman, a great performance, and that whole story arc. It was a breath of fresh air throughout that entire movie. And I think even some of the people who really dislike that movie will at least say, yeah, I like Doc a lot. I liked Paul Newman. I liked that scene when he goes around the racetrack. I think that's a good example. You've also got some great action sequences in films that are narratively or generally is considered quite terrible, like the lightsaber duel in A Phantom Menace, or the opening 10 minutes of Revenge of the Sith. And for the most part, a lot of the action scenes in Transformers, the highway chase in Transformers 3 is stunning. The music's amazing, and I understand that a lot of the footage was recycled from The Island. I think that's what the film's called. But the fact that it is able to blend in so seamlessly, that's, in my opinion, that's actually a credit to Michael Bay and that visual effects team. So yeah, then there was the special effects in those Transformers movies as well. And you've also got the Sandman's origin sequence in Spider-Man 3, which even people who viscerally hate that movie, and I think it's okay, I think it's about on par with, say, Spider-Man Homecoming, and it's much better than The Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2, and it lags behind Spider-Man's, the normal Spider-Man 1 and 2. It's kind of sits in that middle bit of mediocrity to okayness like Spider-Man Homecoming does. But for the Sandman's origin sequence, when he's torn apart by that weird scientific experiment and he starts forming, and the music is beautiful, and the animation of you see every grain of sand form together, and he tries to grab that locket with his daughter, who she's the only reason he's doing this. He tries to grab the locket and his hand collapses. It's wonderful, it's beautiful, it's profound, it's really great stuff, and then he is able to pick it up and continue feeling motivated. It's a beautiful scene. It's dialogue free. The sound effects, the visual effects, and the music carry it to great effect. And the final question of the podcast is from Tom Monty, who asks, your thoughts on the Capaldi era of Doctor Who as a whole, and the state that the show has been left in as a result of it. I'll tackle the second bit first, the state of the show. In terms of audience interest, it's like when between seasons 9 and 10, audience interest for Doctor Who, I think, was at an all-time low, at least in terms of the revived series, so not all-time. Since 2005, it was probably the lowest it had been. The viewing figures for 9 and 10 were pretty low, with the Lie of the Land, or I think it was the third part of the Monk trilogy, being the lowest viewing figures for Doctor Who since it came back in 2005, and the lowest viewing figures since the Sylvester McCoy era. And so, which is a shame, because Series 10, while not amazing, was easily Capaldi's best, most coherent and consistent season. But what has been, thankfully, if Capaldi had one more season, or if Stephen Moffat had one more series, then that could have been the death of Doctor Who. If it had carried on for another series, and it just carried on as it was going, we could be seeing the cancellation of Doctor Who. However, with Moffat leaving, with Capaldi leaving, and Chibnall coming in with Jodie Whittaker and having this whole new branding, this whole new identity, and having Doctor Who on Twitch, having a new logo, having a new Blu-ray come out, and having all this stuff, there's new revitalization in the brand. People are taking notice again. It's becoming part of the discussion and pop culture conversation. Whether or not the show is good when it comes back, and whether or not that it has that sort of success, that's a different issue that I can't quite predict. But in terms of its interest, I think the state of the show that was left as a result of the Capaldi era was kind of left redundant and negligible, when the end of the Capaldi era also resulted in this massive change in the pop culture conversation regarding Doctor Who. If Peter Capaldi had regenerated and it had been, I don't know, James Nesbitt, and Stephen Moffat had continued, then maybe the series would continue to decline. But now that it has had a new lease on life, potentially new audience members who are interested, or people who left at the Tennant era or left at the Matt Smith era and now getting back into it, it's regardless of the state of the show that Moffat and Capaldi left it, that might be a complete non-issue when it comes back come October, November time. I think the state of the show, if it wasn't for the fact that it was getting this massive rebrand and restructuring, we could have seen the end of Doctor Who after another season. But casting a woman as the Doctor, having this rebranding, and having new merchandise and new avenues, like the whole Twitch thing, and having like season 12 come out on Blu-ray, season 12 of the classic series, we're seeing a change, and we're seeing, like, no spoilers. So the conversation is reliant on, the fandom, but the fandom is stretching out. The fandom is finding new avenues, new things to talk about, and is bringing new people in for the most part. And you're going to get terrible people who are like, I hate the fact that a woman has been cast as the Doctor, and is trying to drive that sector of the fandom out, which, in my opinion, is massively counterproductive. It's like, I want this show to succeed, it'd be great, but I want to drive out a bunch of the audience members who are going to be instrumental in that show's success. Like, you can't have it both ways, folks. As for the Capaldi era as a whole, it's unfulfilled potential. It's a Doctor who never quite, until his last season, never really stuck a landing. It was really with Heaven Sent where Capaldi reached his peak as a performer in that show, in terms of him being the Doctor. But then it was completely counteracted by Hell Bent. And then season 10 was much more straightforward and didn't quite give Capaldi as much to work with the exception of The Doctor Falls. But yeah, so with the Capaldi era, he easily had the weakest Christmas specials. Last Christmas, The Husbands of River Song, Twice Upon a Time, Return of Doctor Mysterio, completely disposable. He was in 4 Christmas specials, if you don't count Time of the Doctor. That's a Matt Smith Christmas special. He was in 4 Christmas specials, but none of them were good. They were fine, average, mediocre. They were nothing more than average at best, and that hurts the show. I keep saying, when you have a Christmas special, put your best foot forward, and they never do, and it's really frustrating. So for the Capaldi era as a whole, you have great episodes like Flatline, or The World Enough in Time and Heaven Sent. Although when you consider that they are like part of a two-parter, like Hellbent completely nullifies Heaven Sent in my opinion, and The Doctor Falls is a downgrade from The World Enough in Time, but still a solid story, still a solid ending. But then Twice Upon a Time is like, what are you even doing? What's going on here? So, but with the Capaldi era, in my opinion, if you count two-parters as one story, there was not one 10 out of 10 story. Or like maybe had like one 9 out of 10 story with Flatline. And you had a bunch of decent ones and some good ones, but you never had an episode. Whereas with the Matt Smith era, you had like The Girl Who Waited or Vincent and the Doctor, and with the Tennant era, you had Midnight or The Girl in the Fireplace, and even with Eccleston, you had Dalek and The Parting of the Ways and Bad Wolf. You had these amazing stories where you can just tell somebody, I don't care if you don't like Doctor Who, this is great TV and you should watch it, and they would come and watch it. But with Capaldi, you never had that. You didn't have that. Even when you had something like Heaven Sent, if you talk about it as strictly a single story with Face the Raven or just Hellbent, it never quite met that quality standard that TV, if it needs to survive long term, needs to have. And with Stephen Moffat, with the Capaldi era, it was the Stephen Moffat show. It was, you see so many tropes repeated, you see so many insufferable characters and annoying characters and insipid dialogue and plot strands that repeat themselves and formulas that repeat themselves. And it just kind of got an audience's nerves and grated on them. And I've said it before, I'll say it again, I know so many people who were kind of into the series, but then the moment Peter Capaldi stepped out of on top of the tank playing the electric guitar in The Magician's Apprentice, so many people said, I'm done. I'm not watching this anymore. And I don't blame them. It was stupid in every conceivable way. Even stupid things like in The Magician's Apprentice, when Missy has that meeting with Clara in, it was in a European city or a courtyard or something. And there's unit soldiers. There's soldiers around the perimeter not letting anybody in so that Missy and Clara can be alone. And they have this dialogue. And then a woman walks in with a pet dog. She just walks straight through the friggin' perimeter just so that Missy can be like, you see those two? The Doctor's the owner and you're the pet. That's all. And that may seem like a nitpick, but one, it's stupid when watching it. When you see this woman with the dog walk through the perimeter, you can see the guards in the background, but people pick up on that. Or general audience members pick up on that, and they mock it, and they say how stupid it is. And when you have 3 or 4 moments like that per episode of a Stephen Moffat script, it grates on them. It gets to them, and they think, I'm not watching this anymore. There's clearly no thought to the writing. The writer doesn't respect my intelligence remotely, which there's a lot of times when Stephen Moffat just does not respect the audience one iota. Not all the time, but sometimes, and enough to make a difference. And unfortunately, Peter Capaldi as the Doctor was the collateral damage for that. You had Pearl Mackie as a great companion, you had Matt Lucas being surprisingly great as Nardole, and you have Peter Capaldi, who is a terrific actor, one of the most talented to play the Doctor, being taking part in these stories and these plot lines which audiences weren't enjoying or appreciating or engaging with. And since he's the lead, he kind of has to suffer the consequences of that. I'm not saying that anybody blamed Peter Capaldi. I don't think anyone did. But he was the collateral damage for that. And it was very disappointing. And I hope that in the near future, if there is a multi-Doctor story, that Peter Capaldi can come back. And I love everything Peter Capaldi has done for the fandom and everything he did outside of the show. How he would pose for photos, how he would attend charity events, he would attend Doctor Who exhibitions, he'd just turn up on the day and be in character as the Doctor. When, was it the Doctor Who Experience? There was a convention or something when they had the TARDIS set. And a bunch of kids were exploring the set. And all of a sudden, Capaldi walks in character, unannounced, and starts interacting with the kids, and he does a full-on Q&A. That's wonderful. That's terrific. And he sent that letter to that boy who was really sad Capaldi was going to leave. He sent that letter to the young boy who was really ill or sick or had lost a family member or something. I can't remember exactly. Sent a video message in character as the Doctor saying everything was going to be okay. Like, you can't fault Capaldi. You can't fault his performance. You can't fault everything he gave to the program. I just wish that the stories and the plot lines had been on his level. I felt like he was not done justice by the program. And in the near future, whether Big Finish picks him up and does extra adventures with him and Nardole, or him and River Song, or him and Clara, or him and Bill and Nardole, whatever it takes, I hope that there's more of him in the near future. He's one of the older actors to play the Doctor, if not the oldest. And he's certainly the oldest living actor to play the Doctor. But he's got some enthusiasm in him. He's got some life in him. And I hope he takes a break for maybe a couple of years and comes back for the 60th anniversary. Or comes back in the near future for Big Finish like David Tennant has done. I would love that, and I think the fandom would love it. The fandom would love it if the Big Finish writers got a hold of Capaldi's Doctor. They've done wonders for Colin Baker's 6th Doctor, and he's been redeemed in so many eyes in the eyes of the fandom for the most part. And Capaldi needs a similar level of reappreciation. Maybe not him, but his era, and that would be great. I think that would be wonderful, and I hope in the near future Peter Capaldi is still seen as one of the best actors to play the Doctor, or at least, like, bare minimum, one of the most courteous. So that's everything. Welcome to the Film Brits podcast. Thank you very much for listening. I massively appreciate you sticking with me for over an hour talking about like 8 or 9 trailers and taking those questions. I massively appreciate the support. Once again, if you'd like to support the podcast financially, you can do so via Patreon. Links will be in the show notes and the description below. If you're subscribed on iTunes, please be sure to rate and review it. I'd massively appreciate that. And folks, I will see you next time. One last thing. This is going to be the last episode I record before my birthday, and I'm going to be away next week for work on my birthday. I'm going to be away working on a show in London for about 10 days. So no podcast next week. I'll come back the week after. So yeah, happy birthday to me, and I shall see you in 2 weeks. Take care, guys.